Howdy, and welcome into episode 5 of the Mason and Zane Show. I am your host, Richard Zane. Again, this is going to be my last time, hopefully for a while, doing a show without my partner, Mitch Mason. Again, it's Thursday of spring break. Spring break is almost over. We will have a regular show with the two of us again next Thursday. But just for the sake of getting back on track and getting back into the Thursday swing of things, I'm going to go ahead and do this short little show. We don't have much to recap or look forward to, but as I said, it's always good to get back on schedule. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go ahead and start us off by recapping this past Tuesday's game in Texas. The Lone Star Showdown, the Aggies fell 4-3 to the bitter rivals in Austin. In a game that Texas A&M quite honestly should have won, if you ask me. I think that they played poorly, and it's really the first time that the youth of this team has really shown itself. The defense was absolutely abysmal. The Aggies made 4 errors, including 2 by Jorge Gutierrez, who was making his first career start at third base, and the freshman just had such a tough night. And you really feel bad for the kid. He got a big start in a big game that meant a lot to both schools, and he just couldn't get the job done. But he wasn't the only problem. I do think that if George Yoncha were to have gotten the start at third base, the more experienced sophomore infielder would have maybe not made those errors. I can't say for certain. Obviously, it's just, looking back, hindsight, 2020, whatever. But kid had a bad night. It wasn't just his fault. The bats weren't operating. We only had 4 hits the entire evening. 3 of them came off Braden Shoemake. He was 3 for 4 with a walk and 2 runs scored. The only other hit was Logan Foster. He was 1 for 4, a walk and a run scored as well. When your freshmen have all the hits in the ball game, chances are things aren't going your way, and you're not going to win very many games. The Aggies struck out 9 times. Blake Kopetsky in the leadoff spot for just the second time this year struck out 3 times. Again, the Aggies are striking out way too much. Kind of almost as if the approach at the plate is kind of wrong, is kind of messed up. It kind of seems they're waiting for a perfect pitch to hit. Our walk numbers are really high, but also our strikeout numbers are really high, and unfortunately, our averages keep dropping. One thing that a lot of people have raised questions about was the situational bunting in the 8th inning. Nick Chorby was up with 1 out in the 8th, runners on first and third. The tying run was at third base in the 4-3 ball game in the form of Joel Davis, and the Aggies elected to have Chorby bunt. Chorby bunted it in between the pitcher's mound and first base. The Horns first baseman Casey Clemens read the play the entire way and made a great play to cut down Joel Davis, who was coming home on what appeared to be a safety squeeze. I don't think it was necessarily a bad call. I think it was a good call in that situation. However, Chorby just didn't execute. If he gets it down the third base line, that run scores and the game's tied, and the Aggies are still in business in the 8th inning with just 1 out. However, he didn't execute correctly, push it to the third base side, or the first base side instead of the third base side. Third baseman was standing flat-footed the entire way. The other argument is you have Chorby swing away. Chorby is a state champion track runner from Oregon in his high school days. And if he hits a ball up the middle, chances are he's going to beat out the double play and the run's going to score anyways. So, you're kind of you have two different options. I think they played it a little safer. Neither option, however, worked out, or at least the route they went didn't work out, as Nick Chorby just failed to put the ball down the right baseline, and the Aggies ended up losing the ballgame. That was the biggest play in the ballgame, and unfortunately it didn't go the Aggies' way. A lot of people are upset about Rob Childress over that call. I do not think he mismanaged the ballgame there. I don't think he mismanaged this game at all. He went and got Jason Doxakis at the right time. He was in trouble. He only gave up 2 earned runs, gave up 3 runs total. He was fine. I thought he didn't do anything wrong as far as the pitching staff went. The bullpen was really good. Only gave up 1 run out of the bullpen. That was Corbin Martin, gave up a run in the 5th. But perhaps, he had the lineup a little too mixed up. He did have Kopetsky in the leadoff spot. He moved Chorby down to the 7 hole. I believe, he had 2 catchers in the lineup. Coleman was the DH and Bedford was catching. Gutierrez was at third. Yoncha was not playing. A lot of people out of their normal spots, kind of mixing it up. But honestly, it's a Tuesday game, not a conference game. What more do you want from the guy? He's still trying to figure out what works before we get deep into the conference schedule, and you can't fault him for that. The thing that people are most pissed off about is that bunt call, and again, I said I have no problem with it. It fits the situation. However, Rob Childress can't go out there and execute for his players. The guys have to do what he calls in each situation, and unfortunately, Chorby just didn't there, and I don't think that's Childress's fault. It's just player made a bad play, and it happens. That's how you lose ball games. Um, Despite the loss, though, I did have an outstanding time in Austin. Me and two buddies drove up for the Lone Star Showdown. It was our first time to be in Austin for any A&M Texas meeting in sport or any sporting event, and honestly, I had an awesome time. The Horn fans, most of them, actually all but one Horn fan, they were all very welcoming. Even though we were in maroon, they were saying welcome to Austin, offering us barbecue, all kinds of stuff. It was a really great time. We had some good conversations with some people wearing burnt orange in the stands, and it really makes me think that it's time to bring this rivalry back in all sports. College sports are better with rivalry games. That's just an undeniable fact. College football is not the same without Michigan, Ohio State. The state of Florida is not the same without Florida State and Florida playing every year. The Battle of the Palmetto State, if you take that away, South Carolina might explode. It's time for Texas and Texas A&M to put our egos aside and come back together. I do think that the current generation of Longhorn and Aggie students, myself included, and other people I know at Texas, were being robbed of great traditions that our parents and our grandparents got to experience with those rivalry games. And another factor you gotta consider is A&M is still without a true rival in the SEC. You think about LSU and going back to the Southwest Conference days, and yeah, we don't like LSU at all, but we're not even on their radar when it comes to football like Alabama is, and there's a little hatred there because, quite honestly, they know they're going to beat us every year in football. We can battle with them and duke it out for the baseball SEC West title every year, and we took it from them last year, or we took 2 out of 3 from them last year. But even they don't care that much. You look at South Carolina, just because we have a football rivalry trophy doesn't make it a real rivalry, because quite honestly, I don't even know any students that go to South Carolina that I can talk trash with. It's just not fun. The only rival I would consider a rivalry in the SEC would be Arkansas, and that's only because my friends from high school who go to UA think that they're just as good, if not better than us at everything, even though we beat them every year. So I really hope that sometime in the foreseeable future, the people in charge, both in Austin and College Station, can come together and find a way to work this out, because it's a lot of fun, honestly. It really felt like a family reunion coming together. Everybody's nice, everybody's happy to see people you haven't seen in a while, and it's special. It's a special rivalry that just needs to come back, and quite honestly, we deserve to play the game and have that game, and get to experience the rivalry and traditions like generations past have. So moving on, I'd just like to touch on a couple games that were in the SEC this past midweek. Florida knocked off number 1 Florida State in a rivalry game, also a non-conference rivalry game. They beat the Seminoles 1-0 in Gainesville on Tuesday. Florida and Florida State do something really cool with their rivalry, even though they don't play a weekend series like you would expect, like you can in conference, because Florida State is in the ACC and Florida is in the SEC. They play on 3 different Thursdays throughout the year, one in Gainesville, one in Tallahassee, and one at a neutral site. And quite honestly, if we did that with Texas, that'd be a blast. Getting to have Texas come into Olson once a year, and then A&M traveling to Dish Falk, and then having a game, whether it be in Dallas or Houston or San Antonio, that would be, honestly, it'd be quite a dream, because you have the bragging rights there. You've got a 3-game set. You can tell who the better team is, and then you still get to meet up and play your rival one 3 times a year. Just 3 times the fun that we had this past week. Another game this past midweek on Wednesday, LSU lost to New Orleans 7-4 in 15 innings. LSU has not been good so far during their Tuesday-Wednesday games. Something for Paul Mainieri to touch up and fix as the year goes on, for sure. we really need to, as a fan base, as a A&M fan base, we need to reevaluate our expectations for this team. This is something that I really thought of after reading the message boards on TexAgs Tuesday night and Wednesday. People need to realize that this team is going to go as a regional, or go to a regional, and should definitely go to a regional as a 2 seed. And anything else, in my opinion, is a disappointment. This is, in my opinion, one of the top 16 teams in the country, even though they're so young. And they could easily host a regional in College Station at Olson Field come May. That is very doable, but again, it's not a guarantee. Coming into the year, this team was projected to finish second in the SEC West behind LSU. We got a very favorable draw out of the East this year, considering we don't have to play South Carolina or Florida. The East is much stronger than the SEC West this year. We do have to go to Vandy, but that's honestly our only tough road trip outside the division. The Aggies could easily finish second in the SEC West because I don't think Arkansas is very good. I don't think Mississippi State has proven themselves at all so far this season, and Ole Miss has looked very beatable at times. I'm not even going to talk about the Alabama schools because, again, they're not even on the radar yet. Alabama's the worst team in the SEC West by a long shot. We need to realize that Omaha should not be the expectation every year. Yes, the past two teams, the 2015 and 2016 A&M squads, probably underachieved. I thought the 2016 team might have been one of the best college baseball teams ever. They hit the ball like no other and should have easily gotten to Omaha. They didn't. We need to forget it and move on. Baseball is a game where it pays to have a short memory, and that needs to be the case for fans as well. This team is very young. It's way too young to really expect a College World Series trip this year. That's a decent goal next year, quite honestly. I think this team's so young. You've got guys like Shoemake, Foster, Coleman, Gutierrez, Minor, Doxakis, Cam Blake, and all the others who are just freshmen and sophomore. The future is so bright that Texas A&M could easily make it to the College World Series 2 out of the next 3 years. Think about schools like LSU and Texas. They're college baseball royalty, and their fans don't even expect a trip to Omaha every year. I know that Augie Garrido always used to say, or used to get asked, "Are you taking a trip to Omaha this summer?" And he would always respond with, "Yes, but I'd like to take the team with me." A&M, even at the end of his career, Augie didn't even expect a trip to Omaha. They haven't gone to Omaha since like 2011, 2010, something like that. And they're perfectly fine. They realize that they're rebuilding. They realize that they're young. We need to realize the same. This team is way too young to expect perfection out of them each and every night out. And I'm just going to get off my soapbox and go ahead and get back on schedule, and we're going to move into our preview now. Kentucky comes to town as we open up conference play. So far this season, Kentucky is 12-6. They are 1-5 on the road, so that's looking up for the Aggies. The Wildcats have won 4 in a row, though. Last year, Kentucky finished 4th in the SEC East. They are expected to do a little bit of the same as they are under a first-year head coach. Our probables for this weekend, for Friday night, that's a 6 o'clock first pitch. The Aggies are, of course, going to throw the ace, Brigham Hill. He's 4-0 with a 1.40 ERA. That ERA skyrocketed from an amazing 0.0 after the start last week against Brown. He will be matched up against sophomore right-hander Sean Helly, who is 2-1 so far this season with a 7.06 ERA. ERA is a bit of an anomaly, as he did have one bad start. He's only had 4 starts so far this year, so it's kind of an outlier there. Saturday, 2 o'clock start at Olson. Stephen Kolick, 2-0, looking to remain perfect with a 2.70 ERA. Will face junior left-hander Zach Logie. He is 3-1 with a 1.93 ERA so far on the year. He's had an excellent season so far, as the numbers would indicate. Sunday, the capper, what A&M hopes will be the red, white, and blue game where they will sweep the Wildcats. Mitchell Kilkenny will get the ball yet again. 1-0 on the year with a ERA just above 2. He will face off against redshirt sophomore right-hander Justin Lewis, who is 2-1 with a 2.74 ERA. Kentucky's offense has been outstanding so far this year. They are in the top 3 in the SEC in average, runs scored, total bases, slugging percentage, walks, RBI, and on base percentage. So, if the Aggies give up free passes like they have been known to do out of the bullpen so far this season, the Wildcats will make them pay. And that's really where the game's going to be won. Series is going to be won versus the Aggie bullpen and the Kentucky offense, as they've been red hot to start the year. Kentucky comes into this series having won 4 in a row. Texas A&M has won 5 out of their last 6 after the setback on Tuesday. Other matchups around the SEC to note as conference play does open this year. Florida traveling to Auburn, as that will be a interdivisional game. Number 8, South Carolina will travel to Knoxville to face the Volunteers of Tennessee. Mississippi State will travel to Fayetteville to face the Piggies and Arkansas. Number 24, Vanderbilt, and the only ranked matchup of the week, will travel to Oxford as they face the Ole Miss Rebels. Mizzou and Bama in Tuscaloosa, and Georgia will visit number 7 LSU in Baton Rouge. So I think that it's going to be a fun week for the SEC. Conference play gets kicked off around the country, not only us, but also in the Big 12. I know that Texas was advertising the heck out of their matchup with Texas Tech coming up this week. So look for the Aggies to go at least 2-1 this weekend. I definitely think that a sweep is possible and is likely. As for anything else that goes, I'm going to probably write this up. This will be posted on YouTube later today. And next week, Mitch Mason will be back as we will get back into the swing of things as school gets going again. So thank you for listening. As always, for the Mason and Zane Show, I'm Richard Zane. Have a great weekend, and BTHO Kentucky. Gig 'em. Bye.